Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about what it really takes to be an athletic trainer.
Okay.
The source material we're using today is a guide to interview questions for athletic trainers.
Right.
And I got to say, when I first glanced at this, I thought, oh, this is going to be all about like, you know,
Bandages and ice packs.
yeah, exactly, bandages, ice packs,
Yeah.
the basics.
Yeah.
But these questions actually reveal a much more,
A much deeper side to it.
yeah, deeper and complex side to this whole profession.
Yeah, for sure.
So to start us off, what surprised you the most when you were looking through these interview questions?
Well, I think the thing that stood out to me immediately was just how broad the role is.
Okay.
These questions highlight that athletic trainers are involved in everything.
Oh, wow.
From injury prevention and athlete education to mental preparedness and even like navigating these ethical gray zones. It's a very holistic approach to athlete care.
It's really interesting you say that because it's not just about reacting to, injuries when they happen on the field.
Right.
It's about protecting those athletes even before they step onto the field.
Exactly. And that requires a deep understanding of not only sports science and biomechanics, but also psychology and communication.
Yeah. You need to understand the athlete.
Yeah.
One of the questions that intrigued me was, how do you evaluate an athlete's readiness to play in a game?
Okay.
And it specifically mentioned these noise and marks adult activity scales.
Right.
Can you break those down for us a little bit? What are those?
Yeah, so those scales are really fascinating because they offer a really standardized and objective way to assess an athlete's physical and functional abilities.
Okay.
So you're not relying on gut feelings or like the athlete's eagerness to get back in the game. There's an actual system in place.
So there's like a rubric.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To make sure they're truly ready to return.
That seems like it'd be so crucial because, especially, with athletes, they're competitive.
Of course.
They want to get back in the game. They might downplay their injuries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, imagine a scenario where an athlete is recovering from a knee injury,
Right.
right? And they might feel ready to play, but the scales could actually reveal limitations in their range of motion or their stability.
Oh.
That could put them at risk for further injury.
Gotcha. So it's really protecting them,
Exactly.
not just, letting them go in when they think they're ready.
Right. It's about using data to guide that decision-making process and ultimately protect the athlete's long-term health.
I bet that's reassuring for the athletes, too.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's that system in place to protect them from,
From coming back too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It takes the pressure off of them to convince the coach or the trainer that they're ready.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's like a neutral, data-driven assessment.
Okay. Let's shift gears just a little bit here to another really crucial aspect of an athletic trainer's job,
Okay.
which is on-the-field assessment.
Right.
So one question asks, how do you conduct an assessment of an athlete's injury during a game? What would you say are some of the biggest challenges in that type of environment?
Well, think about it. You're not in a controlled setting like a doctor's office, right?
Right.
There's noise, there's chaos, and oftentimes there's immense pressure to make really quick decisions.
You're like in the moment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it requires this very unique blend of medical knowledge, quick thinking, and what we call triage skills.
Triage skills.
Yeah.
What does that mean, like on the sidelines?
So it's all about prioritizing.
Okay.
You have to very quickly assess the severity of the
You
injury.
have to figure out, like, who needs to go to the hospital?
Yeah, who needs immediate attention,
Oh.
who can wait, and who needs to be transported for further medical care.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost like this rapid fire puzzle
Wow.
where you're constantly evaluating and reassessing the situation.
And those decisions are high stakes.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of weight on those shoulders.
Yeah. You're impacting potentially an athlete's career.
Exactly.
Mm.
And, the guide emphasizes having a very clear emergency plan in place. It's not just about knowing how to treat an injury. It's about knowing how to stabilize an athlete, who to contact, and how to get them the appropriate care as quickly as possible.
So it's thinking several steps ahead,
Yeah,
even in that moment.
exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And this leads us to another important aspect of the athletic trainer's role,
right.
which is prevention.
Yes.
So the guide asks, how do you educate athletes about the prevention of injuries?
Mm-hmm.
So now they're wearing the educator hat.
Exactly.
What would you say makes this aspect of the job so challenging?
I think the biggest challenge lies in changing ingrained habits and mindsets.
Okay.
Athletes are often very driven and competitive individuals who constantly push themselves to the limit.
Hmm.
So convincing them to prioritize rest or proper warm-up and safe techniques can sometimes be an uphill battle.
It's like trying to get your friend to break a bad habit. It's
Exactly.
like almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah, it can be really tough, but it's all about building trust and rapport. The guide emphasizes demonstrating safe techniques, addressing common misconceptions, and promoting healthy lifestyles.
Hmm.
But it's more than just sharing information. It's about connecting with those athletes on a personal level.
Yeah.
And helping them understand why these preventative measures are crucial for their long-term success.
I would imagine that that approach probably needs to be tailored to each individual athlete, too,
Oh, absolutely.
because what works for one person isn't going to work for everybody.
Exactly. Understanding individual needs, motivations, and learning styles is key to effective prevention education.
Right. Let's dive into the recovery process a little bit.
Oh, okay.
One question that stood out to me was, can you give me an example of how you coached an athlete to care for an athletic injury?
Right.
What stood out to you about that question?
I think it really highlights the athletic trainer's role as a coach and a motivator.
Okay.
Recovering from an injury can be a very long and mentally taxing process,
Yeah,
especially for athletes who are used to pushing their physical limits.
especially if they've never had a serious injury before.
Exactly.
And then suddenly they have to,
They're sidelined.
yeah, they can't do what they normally do.
Right.
Well,
And the guide mentions helping athletes adhere to medical plans, which is often a lot easier said than done.
I think we've all been there at some point.
Oh, yeah.
We've all had to follow doctor's orders, and it's not always easy,
Exactly.
especially when you want to get back to doing what you love.
Right. And, the guide actually offers a very relatable example of an athlete with a sprained ankle,
Okay.
which is something I think many of us have probably experienced at some point.
Oh, for sure.
And it emphasizes the importance of setting realistic expectations, celebrating small victories, and providing that constant encouragement throughout the entire recovery journey.
It sounds like empathy is a key skill here.
For sure.
To understand like the frustration that an athlete might be feeling,
Yeah.
the impatience they might be feeling to get back.
Oh.
That must go a long way in building trust and encouraging them to stick with a rehab plan.
It definitely does. It's about being more than just a clinician. It's about being a supportive presence who understands the mental and emotional challenges of recovery,
Mm.
because it is a challenge,
Yeah, for sure.
both physically and mentally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So we've talked about
I covered a lot.
prevention and
Yeah.
assessment and
Recovery.
recovery.
What else is there?
And sometimes that recovery process involves delivering some difficult news.
Oh, yeah.
The guide addresses this with the question, how would you share a difficult piece of information with an athlete, parent, or coach?
Oof. That's a tough one. We've been talking about the physical aspects of injuries,
Mhm.
but there's a whole other layer when it comes to like the emotional impact.
Absolutely. This question really highlights the need for empathy and sensitivity in those situations.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not just about a sprained ankle. It's about delivering news that could potentially impact an athlete's entire future.
Like a career-ending injury?
Exactly. Or the realization that they might not achieve their athletic dreams.
Wow.
The guide emphasizes the importance of calm, clear communication and just being a source of support during those difficult conversations. It's about acknowledging the individual's pain and helping them navigate the emotional fallout of that news.
That must take a lot of emotional intelligence to handle those situations, with grace and understanding.
It does. And it's not just about delivering the news, it's
No.
about being there for the athlete, the parents, or the coach as they process it and figure out what comes next.
It's about being a human being first and a clinician second.
I think that's a great way to put it. And that human element is also crucial when it comes to motivating athletes who might be struggling.
Right.
There's a question in the guide that asks, how would you motivate a discouraged athlete who was unable to successfully complete a training activity and did not want to continue the session?
Ooh. That sounds like a situation that requires a lot of patience and understanding.
It does. Athletes, especially those who are driven and competitive, can be incredibly hard on themselves when they face setbacks.
Yeah.
It's easy to get frustrated and want to give up when you're not performing at your best.
And I bet that's even more amplified when you're recovering from an injury and you're feeling those limitations that you didn't have before.
Absolutely. The guide talks about building trust and rapport, celebrating small victories, and tailoring training plans to individual needs. It's about recognizing that every athlete is different and will respond to challenges in their own way.
meeting them where they are, both physically and emotionally.
Exactly. And sometimes that means being a good listener and allowing them to express their frustration and discouragement. It's about creating a safe space for them to work through those emotions and find the motivation to keep going.
As we're talking about all this, I'm realizing that athletic trainers wear so many different hats.
They do.
They're educators, they're motivators, they're counselors, and sometimes even confidants to the athletes that they work with. It's a much deeper role than I initially realized.
I agree. It's a profession that requires a unique blend of technical expertise, interpersonal skills, and genuine compassion for the athletes they serve.
And I think this deep dive into the interview questions has given us a much more nuanced understanding of what it takes to really excel in this field.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
The questions themselves reveal so much about the core values and challenges that really define this profession.
It makes you wonder if those who are hiring for these roles, if they pay close attention to the nuances in those answers.
I would hope so,
Yeah.
because the right person for the job isn't just someone who can, tape an ankle or diagnose a concussion.
Right.
It's someone who embodies all those qualities that we've been discussing. The compassion, the communication skills, the ability to think on their feet and make tough decisions under pressure.
It's about finding someone who truly understands the human side of sports. Someone who sees the athlete as a whole person, not just a player on a team.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me today. It's been a truly fascinating conversation.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of athletic trainers. We hope you learned something new and perhaps gained a deeper respect for the incredible work these professionals do.
It really is a profession that deserves a lot more recognition.
I agree.
We've all seen those intense moments on the field
Mm.
when an athlete goes down and the athletic trainer rushes in.
Yeah. You see them run out there right away.
Right.
It's like one of the first people there.
And in those moments, it's their expertise and quick thinking that can really make all the
Oh,
difference.
well, absolutely.
But it's not just about that immediate response, though. It's
Oh.
about all those hours of work they put in behind the scenes.
The prevention programs that they develop, the rehab plans that they tailor to each athlete, the emotional support they provide through those setbacks and triumphs, it's all connected.
It is. It's a very holistic approach to athlete care. And it's really inspiring to see how deeply these professionals invest in the well-being of the athletes they work with.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for what it takes to be an athletic trainer.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think it really speaks to the power of these interview questions. They really force us to look beyond the surface and consider the complexities of this profession.
It makes you wonder if those who are actually hiring for these roles,
Right.
if they pay close attention to the nuances in those answers.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Because the right person for the job isn't just someone who can, tape an ankle or diagnose a concussion.
Right.
It's someone who embodies all of those qualities that we've been discussing today.
Mm-hmm.
The compassion, the communication skills, the ability to think on their feet and make tough decisions under pressure.
It's about finding someone who really truly understands that human side of sports. Someone who sees that athlete as a whole person, not just, a player on a team.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me today.
Of course.
It's been a truly fascinating conversation.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to all of you listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of athletic trainers. We hope you learned something new and maybe gained a new respect for this really incredible profession and the people who do this work.